Hello, my name is Amanda Biggs and I'm from the Department of Employment Relations and Human Resources. I'm also part of the teaching team for Griffith Business School. Today I'm going to talk to you about team effectiveness. While there's numerous benefits associated with work teams, there are also several challenges that need to be successfully overcome in order for teams to be effective. It is also important to recognise that teams may not always be the answer. In this video, we are going to look at challenges that are commonly experienced by work teams and strategies for improving team effectiveness. By the end of this topic, you should be able to define team effectiveness, discuss some of the key challenges teams may experience, and explain context, composition, and process factors relating to team effectiveness. According to Mathieu and Gilson 2012, effective teams meet or exceed standards of quantity, quality and timeliness. They increase team members' capacity to work well as a team, and they enhance the well-being and satisfaction of individual team members. So there's really three components of team effectiveness, and it's not just about the actual performance of the task, but also whether the team works well by the end of the task, and whether working as part of a team actually increases people's satisfaction and well-being. There's a lot of challenges associated with using teams, and I'm going to talk through 4 key challenges, starting with the inappropriate use of teams. Teams are quite complex to manage and they increase the complexity of work. They sometimes fail when teams are used to perform tasks that would be more effectively performed by an individual. So Robbins and colleagues recommended 3 questions to ask or consider before implementing teams. So is the work complex, requiring multiple perspectives? Does the work create a common purpose or set of goals that are larger than the aggregate goals for individual team members? And are team members involved in interdependent tasks? So is it necessary for team members to work together to accomplish a task or a goal? The second challenge relates to implementing teams, and it's really important to recognise that implementing teams is a significant organisational change and development process. It's susceptible to the same issues that arise with any major organisational change. So this is really important to consider. And employee resistance is natural when facing change. So when implementing teams, some of the forms of employee resistance that you might encounter include fear about change over social relationships and power structures. So an organisational change like teams is going to change the power structures in the organisation, so people who previously had power may no longer have so much power, and people who didn't have power before may become empowered. It also results in job enlargement. So people have the same duties they had before, but they have the additional duties related to being part of a team. And also, as I mentioned before, people who previously didn't have power might find themselves quite empowered by this process. And while it's often assumed that everybody in a workplace wants more authority, more responsibility and more control, it's not necessarily the case. So these are all things to consider, and there's different strategies that you can employ to overcome these different aspects of resistance to change. Teams are also often developed for the purpose of making decisions. And while that has a lot of strengths associated with it, there's also some key weaknesses associated with decision making in teams. It does tend to be more time consuming. There's a potential for an individual person or few people to really dominate the discussion and dominate the sharing of information. There's increased pressure to conform in teams, particularly if the team is very cohesive. And also there's ambiguous responsibility, because when a team makes a decision, responsibility for the outcome is diffused. And these two last points in particular link to 2 major group dysfunctions in decision making: group shift and group think. So group think occurs when there's a strong pressure to conform and other alternate outcomes or solutions to a problem are not given adequate consideration. And group shift occurs when teams make decisions that are far riskier than they would make if they were making the decision as an individual. So group shift and group think are important biases that might occur as a result of team decision making. Another challenge is quite broad, and it's the absence of factors supporting team effectiveness. A lot of research has been invested in identifying the factors that do contribute to team effectiveness. And I'm going to talk about a model that is shared in both Robbins et al. And Mathieu and colleagues in 2018. And those references are at the back of this presentation. So in these models, there's interlapping or overlapping factors that are interconnected, and they relate to the team's composition, context, and processes. So starting with composition. Composition factors relate to the composition of the team itself, so the people who are part of the team. And it includes things like abilities and personalities. So research shows that when tasks are complex, teams that have a greater ability or individuals with greater ability are going to be more effective for complex tasks. In relation to personality, teams that have high levels of conscientiousness, open to experience, and agreeableness tend to have greater performance. Diversity is another aspect of the composition that can impact on effectiveness. So we're talking about diversity of skills and experience here, and research shows that initially teams with greater diversity are going to have conflict at the beginning, but once you can successfully manage that conflict, diverse teams tend to outperform other teams. And also things like team members' preference for teamwork. If you have a team composed of individuals who prefer to work in a team, then you're going to have greater effectiveness in that team. Context is also really important, and context factors relate to the structure, processes and resources that surround the team and supports team effectiveness. Harvey and colleagues in 1998 outlined 8 important context factors that I will share with you. Having clear goals set for the teams, decision-making authority, so actually having authority to make decisions, accountability and responsibility, effective leadership, training and development, resources, organisational support, and rewards for team success. Finally, process factors relate to events or processes that actually occur within the team and impact the team's effectiveness. So things like creating a common purpose to provide direction. So effective teams spend time at the beginning of their formation, analysing their mission, developing goals and creating strategies. They have a clear sense of what needs to be done, and this is linked to effectiveness. We also have things like creating team belief and the ability to succeed. So research shows that teams that believe that they will succeed actually do succeed, and teams that have had prior successes also are more likely to succeed. So one way to build team efficacy or belief in the team's ability as a manager is to create small goals or small wins along the way, so that as successes occur, the team is celebrated, and this builds their self-efficacy. Another issue is creating a common mental map of how work should be done, a team mental model. So this is an understanding of how work should occur. It's knowledge and expertise about what needs to be done. And when this is shared by the team, it's really powerful in promoting team effectiveness. A review of 65 studies found that teams with shared mental models engage in more frequent interactions, are more motivated, have more positive attitudes towards work, and higher self-rated performance. So in conclusion, work teams do bring numerous benefits to organisations, but are challenging to implement. Prior to introducing team-based work, it is essential to consider the following points. Who would most effectively complete the work, teams or individuals? Implementing teams should be approached as an organisational process, and teams are more likely to be effective when factors supporting team effectiveness are present. There is a list of references if you would like further information on the topic of team effectiveness. And thank you so much for your time and attention.